Hey everyone, if you're using escalation clauses in your purchase contracts, we're going to describe in this video what they are, how they work, and some pitfalls that real estate professionals need to be aware of. Hey everyone, if we're meeting for the first time, my name is Paul Vojchehoske and welcome to the Real Estate Classroom YouTube channel. Just a place where real estate professionals can get tools and tips to stay out of real estate jail. And hey, by the way, if you would click that little red subscribe button, that little notification bell right next to it, and give this video a thumbs up or a thumbs down, either way, I don't care. It is all traffic for the channel. Escalation clauses is the topic of this video. And I will tell you, I'm pretty apprehensive about putting this out on the airways, and here's why. Everybody has their own opinion of what they are and how they work and what they mean. And I'm going to probably disrupt some of that thinking. The whole point of this video is just to make you think about it. And for you brokers, maybe to dive a little bit deeper into these escalation clauses that your agents are using and maybe come up with a good escalation addendum that they can use. Because right now it's like the Wild West. I have seen so many different escalation clauses and addendums out there, and they're all different. Everybody's using stuff that they've pirated off the internet, and they don't make sense. It is really a mess out there. So I'm just trying to bring some awareness to this. And so in this video, what I'm going to do is I want to hopefully answer three questions. Number one is what an escalation provision is, or an escalation clause, how they work, and some pitfalls that agents really need to think about and try to avoid here. So there are really two types of escalation addendums. Now, I understand we say escalation clauses, but most of the time the escalation clause is not put in the actual contract. It's an addendum. It's an escalation addendum. And there are two major types. There is a gross sales price escalation addendum and a net to seller escalation addendum. And I'm going to describe both. The first one we're going to talk about is the gross price, and that's really simple. I mean, look at the board behind me here. Here's a typical scenario. We have 4 competing offers on this property. Tom, Sel, Sarah, and Don. And then Sarah has the only offer with a escalation clause. So in this case, we have Tom, who has the highest offer at $185,000. However, Sarah's contract has the escalation provision that allows or requires an escalated price or an interval price of $1,000 above the highest competing offer. Pretty standard. And then she has a cap built in of $192,000. All right, so in this case here, Sarah's $179,000 offer is going to jump over Tom's $185,000 offer, and ultimately we're going to end up with an escalated sale price of $186,000. I think most people understand that concept and how it works. But let's use the same scenario with a net to seller. All right. So we have 2 columns now. We have the same 4 offers with the same 4 real estate agents. Now we have the net to the seller on each one, and we still have the $1,000 escalated interval and the cap at $192,000. But look what happened here. All right, so let's take a look here. We have Tom's $185,000 offer that nets the seller $100,000. But let's look at Sarah's. Sarah's $179,000 offer actually nets the seller $101,000. Well, how did that happen? Well, each contract is different. Each contract, because of financing closing dates, because of repairs may be requested, because of home warranties asked for, seller concessions, there's a whole litany of reasons why. But in this case, Sarah is the listing agent. And you know what? Sarah has a provision in the listing contract that says if it's a double bubble, then the seller pays less commission. And so that $179,000 offer, which is $6,000 less than Tom's, actually nets the seller more. But Tom was smart. Tom put, on behalf of his client, an escalation clause in the contract that said that they would beat the net, the seller net, by $1,000. So the next highest competing by $1,000. So in this case here, Sarah, $179,000 offer, nets $101,000 to the seller. Well, Tom has to beat that $101,000 net. And how does Tom do that? Well, he's got to add, obviously, $2,000 to overcome that. So he's going to add $2,000 onto his $185,000 offer, which makes the new escalated sale price $187,000. Now, I hope you understand how we got to that. We're not talking about a gross sales price. We're talking about the net here. And Tom's offer with the escalation clause had to better that net, that Sarah's net of 101 by $2,000. And that's how we came up with the $187,000 offer. All right, so that's how the two different escalation provisions work. So here are a couple other problems that we have to really think about when we're talking about the net to seller escalation, and that is timing. So is the net based on the contract date, or is the net based on the closing date? And why does this matter? Well, because some of these escalation clauses are so poorly written, there's an actual example that I have for you, and that is the contract date netted, as of the contract date, the seller netted a certain amount of money. But after the title search was done, they found a $5,000 mechanics lien. Well, that changes the seller net at closing. And this escalation clause was so poorly written, the seller was saying, hey, you guaranteed that you would beat the highest net to me, the seller. And you know what? I thought it was as of the day of closing, so guess what? I want that $5,000. And they have a legitimate argument. The seller probably, or the buyer probably has a legitimate argument too, but the whole point of a real estate agent is not to get our clients in legal jeopardy in the first place. Unfortunately, a lot of these escalation addendums are poorly written, and they don't address or put protections in there to deal with these type of scenarios. All right, so we have to think about that. And what is a valid cost? That's another issue that comes up as well. Another thing we need to think about is if it's a net to seller addendum or escalation clause, and the listing agent says, hey, Mr. Buyer's agent, I did the calculations and here is the escalated purchase price. Are we going to take their word for it? I would say no. I mean, in fact, the Washington Association of Realtors, some of their members, they have the addendums, their standardized addendums now, have the calculations built right into the addendum, so the listing agent has to do the calculations right on the addendum and send it over to the buyer's agent, so the buyer's agent can actually verify that the calculations were done. Because remember, there's 4 offers here on our scenario that we've been discussing in this video. That's a lot of moving parts, a lot of different costs, there's just a lot of math. And you're trusting that the listing agent calculated the numbers correctly. So at a minimum, I do think it's legitimate for the buyer's agent to say, listen, not only do we want a copy of the contract that invoked the escalation clause, the highest competing contract that invoked that escalation clause, which is almost in every escalation addendum, and it's very legitimate, but we also need the seller cost sheet. And I think that is a very valid request so the buyer's agent can verify that the listing agent calculated the numbers correctly. All right, one other issue that I think we really need to address here. So remember, as I said, in most of the escalation clauses, there's a provision that says that the listing agent shall provide to the buyer's agent a copy of the highest competing offer so the buyer's agent can verify that the offer was bona fide and real and legit. I think we all understand that. But my question to you is, what if that offer that they gave you that invoked that escalation clause had expired? Is it really bona fide and enforceable at that point? Is it a legitimate contract? And that's the point here. So let's look at the board here. So we have Tom, who had the highest competing offer. Sell was the second highest at 183. All right, so the escalation, Sarah had the escalation clause with that $1,000 interval. So based on Tom's $185,000 offer, Sarah's offer actually became the escalated price of $186. Right? We discussed that earlier. But what if Tom's offer had expired already? Well, in my opinion, the legitimate, bona fide, enforceable contract is not Tom's, it's Sel's. Because an expired contract is expired, right? So that means Sel had the highest competing offer at 183. So actually, the new escalated sale price should be 184 and not 186. I will tell you that I do see a lot of offers where the highest competing offer had expired before the contract was agreed to. So therefore, it was an expired contract that they were using to escalate the price. It's something that you need to discuss with your broker because I think it does create some liability on the buyer's side. At least it's something that the buyer's agents need to address. All right. One other thing, and I'm almost really apprehensive to bring this up, but I have been getting a lot of communication from you folks out there saying, here's what's happening with these escalated prices. The underwriters and the lenders and the appraisers really aren't getting it. They don't understand. Listen, the purchase contract has a $185,000 offer. We end up with an escalated price of $190 because of the escalation clause. A lot of the underwriters are having a hard time grappling with this, and it's jeopardizing the loan. So here's what I'm telling you to do. If you arrive at an escalated price through that escalation process, that's awesome. Let's say it's $190. Your original offer was $185. Through the escalation process, you end at $190. What I would tell you at that point is actually counter the escalation clause completely out of the contract and then counter the new price at $190. So that way we kind of make it lender-proof and appraiser-proof. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just mean that those are the two groups that we seem to be having issues with the escalated price. And you know as well as I do, we want everything to go as smoothly as possible because so many things can go wrong. So just my recommendation for that. That's all I got in this video. I hope you got something out of it. I know I probably forgot something, and I know it probably also sparked a little bit of consternation maybe. So I would love to hear your comments. If I missed anything, if you don't agree, if you agree, put them down in the comments below. But please be civil and be respectful. If you would, please don't forget to like this video, thumbs up or thumbs down, subscribe to the channel, share this with others. Until next time, please get out there and sell something.